Access to water is a right enshrined in the South African Constitution. And according to the South African Local Government Association, it means that the Department of Water and Sanitation's pending water cuts to 30 defaulting municipalities across the country is unconstitutional. These municipalities could see their water supply throttled if they do not pay their bills by the 8th of next month. Well, joining us this morning, it's Jean de la Harpe, the Executive Director of Municipal Infrastructure Services at SALGA. Jean, good to have you. Thank you so much for being our guest here. I know that you're also in our parliamentary studios this morning.
Morning, yes, it's good to be here.
So what you're saying is that ordinary South Africans are basically being punished, and what is being threatened is unconstitutional.
Absolutely, it's unconstitutional. Water is a basic human right, and the Constitution protects that right.
Now, what action can be taken against the department if they are acting unconstitutionally?
Well, this is a bridge that we've never crossed, and hopefully we're never going to cross. It's going to cause huge public health problems. It's going to deprive the end user and basically punish the end user, and it's not going to solve the problem. So we're hoping that these cuts are not going to happen, and that rather the department will come together into an intergovernmental process to sort these problems out.
Yeah. Okay. Now, in your view, though, let's take a look at the angle of the DWS. What other alternatives do they have to actually get these municipalities to pay now?
Well, I think we've got to look at this in a much more holistic way. We've already gone through a process in the electricity sector where we've had similar problems. We need to look at the underlying problems. Whilst municipalities owe 10 billion, they are owed in the region of 38 billion, my apologies. And that's for water. There's also approximately 129 billion owed to municipalities for water, for rates and taxes, and electricity. So underlying the problem of non-payment to water boards and the Department of Water and Sanitation is a much bigger debt where communities, government, businesses are owing to municipalities. And we've got to look at the bottom of this problem. Why is there such huge debt? Why are communities not paying? What are the problems there? And that's what we as SALGA are saying is let all parties come together and really do a diagnosis, do due diligence on all of the affected municipalities to get to the bottom of the problems. Simply cutting off water, well, it's not simply, it's actually a very serious action to take, will not solve the problem.
When we look at, obviously, some of these communities, and I did put this to the Department of Water and Sanitation yesterday during our interview, saying that there certainly are those end users that have been paying religiously. They have been paying, and there are, of course, areas where people cannot afford to even think about paying for their water. The indigent families that are out there, they're disadvantaged, they can't do this. Now, when you look at those that are paying, who really should be held accountable? Should it be the end user, or should it be those in the municipality that perhaps are not paying the money over? The money's being paid and yet it's being squandered elsewhere.
Well, I think firstly we can't say that about all municipalities. And before we use words such as squandered, we need to know that that is in fact the case. We're in an environment at the moment where economically things are very tough. There's unemployment. The minister herself said that there are budget cuts, there's no new money. The number of households that are indigent have increased dramatically. So there's more and more pressure on government as a whole, but particularly on municipalities who are acting as the shock absorber for poverty by providing basic water, basic electricity, and so on. So this isn't just a problem of municipalities not paying their bills. It's a problem that's deeper than that. And if there is a problem of money being squandered, that will be coming out in audits, it will be coming out in the due diligence and in the processes that SALGA, Treasury, COGTA and others are undertaking.
Well, I mean, when we see
in terms of
just to add to that, just in terms of the Auditor General's reports, I mean, I think that we get some very clear pictures of how this money is wasted, where it is not going to the intended cause, you know, and that is, I suppose, where the analogy coming from of the squandered money from the municipalities that is not being used for the right purpose. But sorry for interrupting you. Please do carry on.
We need to learn from our experience in the electricity sector, where there have been electricity cuts. And I think one of the positive aspects from this whole process of digging deeper into the accounts and so on is that Eskom, NERSA, SALGA, National Treasury, COGTA, public enterprises have all come together into an interministerial committee to say, how do we solve these problems? What can each party contribute? So, for example, Eskom has come up with a number of concessions in terms of their credit control policies to try and ease the situation. Likewise, SALGA is working hard with municipalities to look at sustainable payment agreements. We can't threaten municipalities with cut-off and land up with unsustainable payment agreements that will land up the next month not being paid. So from the SALGA perspective, we're saying, let's get to the bottom of the problem. Let's not take that step of cutting off water, which is a basic human right, and let's solve this together.
Quite an interesting quote that I'm reading from the minister here. She says, to quote, "We are not punishing the end user. We are pleading with those who provide to the end users to take some responsibility and pay for the services that we are providing them," end quote. Now, there in a nutshell is basically the blame going to the municipalities who are not doing their job. And it's not necessarily intended to punish the end user, but it is punishing the end user because they're the ones who are going to open their taps and there's not going to be any water, even though they may have been paying. So let's sort of now just talk the road forward, because the 8th of December is around the corner. I mean, we're looking at basically at next week. What is going to happen between now and then?
Well, of course, it's publishing the end user. It's punishing end users who've paid their accounts, end users who are dependent on free basic water. So this is, in our view, completely unconstitutional. The department has as much an obligation constitutionally to ensure access to water as do municipalities. And if in fact municipalities are unable to fulfill their constitutional function there, the department in fact needs to step in, not discontinue water or cut water. So we will definitely be engaging with the department over the next few days. In fact, there's a meeting of the Portfolio Committee of Water this morning, where some of our municipalities are going to be put forward their case and the problems that they're facing. And we're hoping that this can be resolved amongst the parties. As I said, government is responsible and we cannot punish the end user. We've got to resolve this. There cannot be cuts.
Jean, we leave it there for this morning. Jean Harpe is the Executive Director of Municipal Infrastructure Services at SALGA, talking to us from our parliamentary studios. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Let's take a break. We'll see you after this with the main news at 7 o'clock. Do stay tuned.